Welcome. Bienvenue. Welcome. That was cheesy. Just trying something out. But welcome to Late Night with Lazy Sunday. It's a Tuesday. It's not quite Sunday. But grab your favorite beverage, sit on down, pack it in, and let's paint some buttery highlights. Or shitty chalky highlights, whichever one we end up with tonight. This is wine. You should probably do the same. All right. I do currently have two cameras running. Here. You won't be able to see this one because that's recording for the actual YouTube channel, and I can't make it look good for stream. I want it to look good for YouTube, so just know if you want to see it, we got this one here. That's the big boy for YouTube, and then that one's for the stream. I've got like another 3 cameras on this desk, but none of them are plugged in right now, and I don't have enough HDMI cables to make it work. So we're working on it. If anyone has any questions on how I do what I do, or how many cameras I have, and what, let me know. So I have the same amount of cups on this cup holders. An enormous light above my head. Okay. Alright, so today we are working on our friend Deuce here. I love Deuce. My son loves Deuce. Pretty stoked to be painting him. I've spent so much time working on him that at this point I am massively behind on my deadline to get them all done by next week. But he looks pretty sick, and I'm pretty stoked about that, so I'm not gonna be shamed. Throw out some Signar blue base down. That's his main coat. In case you have any questions on what I have out here, this is rinse water. This one is like my water, just to get clean water to the paints when I want to. And this cup is my wine cup. Charge a little bit of Signar blue base. This one, see if we get a little Signar highlight. Let's help you down just a little bit. Signar highlight. It's a little bit brighter. It's kind of the same deal. Cool. So I did already start the layering process on this mini last night, and I hate it. So we're gonna go back in a little bit and redo a bunch of it. Or at least, you know, kind of like glaze over the top of it so we can reset it a little bit. So I'm going to start off with about aiming for 50% on the highlight. This first layer, and about 50% for the base coat. And I'm one of those masochists that absolutely loves really thin layers. So we're going to water this down a lot. It's probably going to be my downfall. That's probably enough. I watched another live stream today in which everyone watching just basically commented on how the sound sounded, so let's not do that tonight. If it doesn't sound good enough, let me know. I'll turn the sound up. Let's try to go for some sexy beats. Late night, right? We're gonna play to the theme. Corey likes one thing, it's themes. We're at a 35 at about like an 8, so like if that's out of focus, oh, it's an 11. Jeez. If that's out of focus, you just let me know. But there's little chance we can get out of focus. We're pushing it. This camera's great. It's gonna be a little grainy because nobody cares. I'm the only one who cares about this. But what do we got? So I'm trying to keep my highlights a little positional here. Generally this light's coming this way, per usual, because his head's turned. He's got a little cock to it. Hopefully the highlights kind of work this way, because he's turned away from the light. This one, if you can see it, it's kind of what kills me. Let's see if it shows in the light. We did this painting last night and literally looks so chalky. Drives me nuts. And like, some of that's just doing a lot of really thin layers and having patience. So, we'll work on that. We'll label this one. This cast is the butter cast, because we're going to get some buttery highlights. Oh yeah, that's nice and thin. That's going to be maddening thin. So let's kind of come down this way. It's hitting his headpiece here and coming this way. He's creating his own shadow here. This is what I think about. I'm a lighting guy professionally, so the light's coming this way. It's kind of hitting here, and this is rounded. So that light kind of creates like a spectral highlight that's circular. This is less circular, so we're going to kind of make a linear highlight there. I talk a lot, but I don't know a lot. Honestly, that glaze already made it look better. That's wild. Hey Evan, thanks for saying great stuff. What are you up to tonight? I'm fighting every urge to just sit and look at one piece, highlight it, look at the next piece, highlight it, look at the next piece, highlight it. But I really don't have that time. Fun piece though, and this is what's really going to ruin my wet palette, is that I'm sitting under a 500 watt soft light above my head. And I'll post pictures of this later, what my setup looks like, in case anyone's interested. But because I'm sitting under a soft light, everything is A, drying faster, and B, drying faster. No, my whole point was that it's drying faster, which is cool for my really thin layers that I'm doing. Tragic for my wet palette, because I can actively watch my wet palette dry in front of me, as if I'm painting in the sun. Is it great stuff though, Evan? Like, let me know. So hopefully, we're working on it now. We should be up shipping our battle report with these guys come Monday. We got a location. We got a whole bunch of people with cameras coming out. So hopefully, we can hit it hard. Also, like, absolutely really bad at not overworking paint, which is, I guess it's good that I'm A, using P3, which is hard to overwork. Possible, but hard. And B, shooting super thin layers. Turn this mic on, see if it doesn't. No, not doing it. Honestly, just this one layer. I mean, I'm gonna do the whole thing like I planned on doing, but this one layer of highlights, like this glaze I'm doing, really kind of tamed some of the chalky highlights I had going. We got 6 guys. 6 is our all-time high. What's everyone doing tonight? What are we up to? Raise a hand. How many people are watching Lord of the Rings and this at the same time? Oh boy. You see me fidget over here, it's because I'm simultaneously trying to shoot this for the YouTube video. I'm painting this. And painting on this lens. Which this one's super wide. This one over here is not. And I should be painting to this setup, but I completely forgot it was rolling. Pretty stoked about 6. Think we get to 10 on the next one? What do you think? We made a lot of friends between here and there. is that I work in film and TV, right? So I'm so used to the way light falls off and the way highlights and midtones work, so I can kind of recreate that. But it's also like my biggest weakness because I hate edge highlighting, and I hate the way Games Workshop teaches you to paint, because to me it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So I'll do 800 steps to make it look the way I want it to look. And will it look good? I don't really know. I don't know, to be honest. I'm gonna go over here. Maybe I put a wider lens on the A camera. Maybe that's it. It's starting to throw off my streaming. Stream's what's most important, right? What's up, Mark? Marc Antoine? Am I saying that correct? Marc Antoine Desjardins. You painting that right now? Like right now while we're painting together? Is this a twofer? You're painting, I'm painting, you're painting, I'm painting? I like to pretend like I know French. I'm really fucking bad at it. So basically, if you're not in the know with painting on this one, glazing is the method of really thinning out your paints so that they are also, like, they're acrylic paints at their base are translucent, right? So they're dry translucent. It's like putting a bunch of like colored tissue paper on top of each other. So as you paint with the thicker paints, they're like less translucent but still translucent, so you do two layers of it, you're set. If you do 3 layers, you're double set. Like everything is just completely, you're no longer see-through. But when you glaze, those pieces of tissue paper, those colored pieces of tissue paper, get much thinner, so you can see through them much more. The problem is that to get to the colors you want, it's a lot more steps. Especially with this, it's like 100 steps to get to that natural highlight. You don't see edges, you don't see lines. But again, it takes 100 of them, but it does start to knock off the edge and the lines you get. So like the other day I was highlighting and I got a little ahead of myself and I didn't water down my paints as much as I wanted to. And I can see all the edges on my highlights. So right now I'm glazing down my paint. I've got what is like generally my mid-tone color, and I have it thinned down a lot, so it's super thin, and it's kind of creating a filter across my lighting, across my highlights, which right now is kind of smoothing out all the work I did, which is really nice and kind of tempting to just kind of jump the line here and keep going, but generally when you do this, right, so you start with your base tone. I like to base color a lot darker. That way I can work my way all the way up to the mid-tone and then all the way up to the highlight and build contrast before I wash anything. I'm kind of skipping some steps on Deuce because I don't have the time. But you start wide, and then as you go closer up, you start hiding where all the edges are because those layers are so thin. Does that make sense? I start to ramble a little bit. Let me know if that makes sense. Hey, buddy. Ice King's here. Hail to the king, let's go. But basically, I already did like a bunch of stuff last night, and I built up my highlight level to like where I wanted to be, but I didn't thin them enough, so they got real chalky, and I could see every line. And some of those problems are also, although my paint right now is at a consistency I like, I'm under a really hot light, and that really hot light is starting to dry out my paint. So I'm actively working against that. And also, and hopefully you can see what I'm doing here. My camera's currently on my right side, which is my dominant hand, which is probably not the place to put it for mini painting. I'm starting to learn. But what I am doing, and like a little effect I like, is when I'm highlighting, when I'm doing this glazing highlighting step, I try not to use the tip too much, because the tip creates really clean lines. And what I really want is to use the side of the brush so I can smooth it out. Dude, I hate washes, and like the only reason I'm using oil washes in this one is because I can pin wash it down and like just absolutely get the recesses and add that extra depth to the color, and maybe help out my smoothness. But a lot of the painting job I do, I'm starting at like shadow detail. Like I'll start at black and then go dark blue and then go the next step between the two. So I'm literally just layering all the way down to all the way up, because there's so much more control. I have a weird anger towards the way Games Workshop teaches painting, and it's okay if you like to do it, it's fine. So I'm not picking on any one person, but the way Games Workshop tends to do their system is so you can do it as easily as you want, but it doesn't teach you how to do it well. And like the day I realized that as a painter, I was so mad at them. It's like, man, washing just makes things look ugly sometimes. There's just no control. I was so angry. Man, fuck you guys. So I do oil washes. I'm sure you do them too. But they work great because like I can control them. I can take them off, and then if I do like a real wash, I don't do like a pin wash. If I do like a real slather it on wash, it's like an extra step of highlighting, because you're highlighting again with removal, which is why I do all my highlights before I do any actual. That's why I do my highlights before I do any oil washing, because then I'll highlight again through removal. Given my like insane distaste right now for hand brushing on metallic paint, I can see a world where I just learn non-metallic metal because I'm so mad at those paints. And there's nothing wrong with using metallic paints, but like I can't get it to a place where I like using it and I feel comfortable. I get really mad at them because it always globs up all the detail. But again, like I use Vallejo metallics, and I don't know how good that is, and I don't have the money at the moment to really upgrade to anything good, so I'm just gonna bitch and complain until I get the money to get the better stuff. I can't wait to see that Girl Gas. That guy's my introduction to Ice King. If you've been on his channel, he's in the chat. There's 6 of us here. The other 5 of you who are not Ice King should definitely go check out his channel. But his paint jobs are wild. And literally, the first thing I saw was his Candy Apple Red Girl Gas Mini. That's Orgoth, right? I believe it's Orgoth. Like there's still some chalkiness on my shoulder pads. I don't love that. But we're gonna keep doing layers till it goes away, and I feel good about it. I'm such a hater of like shortcuts. I'm like that masochistic, like to do everything the hard way and do as many steps as I can to control it. Paint minis like Gundams, like you paint them like you're painting Gundams, or you paint them as if they were Gundams? Like, are all your Garlgas just, are all your Orgoth just Zeon Principality? Is your Warcaster Shar? On that note, where do you stand on the Earth Federation war? Just a waste of funds? Do you think it'll be over? Do you think it'll just be 1 year? Or do you think it'll keep going? Dude, that's it's funny that you say that, and it's funny. Sorry, Ice King said that Sazabi's is the inspiration for the Garlgas, but that's my all-time favorite mobile suit. So Sazabi and Nightingale, which is the same mobile suit but different, depending on how deep into the lore you get. Zeon did nothing wrong, except for dropping a planet on a planet. But they do that in 40k all the time, so who cares? Does the playlist I've provided here match the mustache I've come to play with? Would be my open question for everyone watching. I love Gundam. I grew up watching it. I've read the books. I'm huge, especially the 1 Year War. Especially that. I'm a big Char fan. I don't have any Gunpla in my house, and the one Gunpla I do, I'm trying to sell. Because I just don't have room for it. I have about 1,000 miniatures, and if I want to make my wife agree to keep them in our home. There needs to be some give, and if I start putting Gunplas around, we're gonna have a problem. I honestly don't know anything about the Gunpla competitive community. I mean, the most I know about it is what they talked about in Rogue Hobbies this week. Didn't know there was one. I'm getting like 20% of my painting on this camera. There's like this noise that keeps happening. It's like a rattle noise. Don't know what that is, but it's not me chewing anything. It sounds like I'm chewing something. It's not my rinse cup, but just know it's not disgusting. Yeah. Bring that small kit all the way up north to Brooklyn. They could have its own apartment with me. I'm glad you like that music. I'm a big fan. I had a dream last night that a friend of mine from childhood had watched my channel and was like, you know what, dude, the cool lo-fi jazz you do is fun, but you're much more of a synthwave guy. Why aren't you using synthwave? And I was like, man, there's already like 10 YouTubers that do that. I can't be that person also. Ooh, I missed half the fucking mini. But honestly, if you look up like my cinematographer reel on YouTube, Corey C. Mafucci cinematography reel 2024, it's not hard to find. Half my stuff looks like 80s horror movies, which would lead to the synthwave commercial dream. Ice King, do you like look at the Project New Type page at all? That guy's in New York City. I heard he runs a good event up here in New York. I've never gone because like don't have the time, but my mom is calling me. I gotta turn this camera off really quick, take this phone call. I'm gonna leave Deuce here for you all to look at. Turn the sound off. It's like, hey guys, just hey mom, just give me a minute. I'm on a live YouTube stream talking to a bunch of people who are watching me paint. She says, well, tell everybody I say hi. She says hi back. Let me give you my face again. And then you guys miss me. Here we go. I should be back now. No, it's not. Missed the button. There we go. Drives me crazy is I'm working on this round shoulder. It's the only place that really gives me an issue. I'm trying to smooth it out with the edge of my brush. But every time there's an edge, it shows up. Just this one shoulder. So like here's, I know I've vented some discords recently about, just put this on here so I don't, my entire thing doesn't go away. But here's my psychosis here, right? So we'll throw it up here so you can see this camera. Try as I might. Where is it? See here, right? You kind of see the vents and the little dimples and everything, and you can see a lot of texture, which is almost okay because it's metals. Whatever, big deal. But like, there's some of it here too, like the thickness of the thickness of the paint globs it up, you know, and it drives me nuts. It drives me absolutely insane. And like the first minis I've ever painted, which happened to be on my table because I'm making a video about it. Right here, that should be close enough. You can see like all the little same pipes are like clumped up and thick, and it's like, how do I stay away from that? Obviously, I've learned to thin my paints, but the more I thin them, the more the metal starts to get out wide. Starts to thin out too much, and then the more I thicken them, the more they glob through everything, and sometimes it's really hard to get to that middle ground, and it drives me fucking nuts, man. Like, real angry. I'm not an angry mini painter. In fact, I'm the opposite. This is what I do to calm down. But thank you, darling. Thank you, Ice King. I think it honestly doesn't look that bad. I think maybe it was making me mad at the time, and now that I look at it, I'm like, oh, I don't see anything. So like, showing it up on camera really didn't help my cause. Do you want to see my first mini? Because I mean, I've told Ice King about this because we talk but I'm working on this video right now simultaneously with my Deuce video that I'm absolutely wasting. Hold up. So I'm working on this video. Hopefully you can hear me while I'm up here. And it's the idea of praxis, which is applied techniques, growth through applied techniques, right? So basically I'm going back to Butcher 1, which is my first ever mini because he's so sick. I love Butcher 1. And so, point being, the whole point of the praxis video is I'm going to talk about my growth and simultaneously, like, not Privateer Press, but War Machine's growth over the years, kind of trying to meld the two, but also just kind of showing, here's my first mini. I bought the same mini again. I'm going to repaint that mini and show how much I've grown as a mini painter through these applied techniques. So I'm like 5 bullets, like oil washes, highlights, use of airbrush, basing, because I didn't base this guy at all. But the whole point is to show how I've grown while using a big college word like praxis. So here's Butcher. That was my first ever mini painted. I've got some like real gnarly close-ups of it that I took a while ago that are just like thick paint on them. But he's honestly not even that bad. I think the Warjacks were worse off. But the Warjacks are less exciting to make a mini video about. Butcher's cool. And at this point I got so obsessed with doing him and painting Butcher that I started to buy all of his iterations except for the Orgoth one because I can't afford that. Well, when it's your first mini, you just start globbing paint on, right? But here's Butcher. Here's new Butcher. Did some airbrushing on him. We'll see how the video comes out. I broke a big rule of mine with the new Butcher because I fucking hate the color red. Hate it. I think it's a Decimator. It was in like a, it was in a starter box that I bought. Way back in like 2016. It didn't have Butcher in it. It had, what's his name? I forget the guy's name. I got him over here because I'm going to repaint him too, just for funsies. I threw a, I forget his name, but I threw a coat of, I don't know, primer on him for some reason. It was dumb. I should have just painted over the paint that was already on. But I bought Butcher because I was like, this guy's cool, and I read his book right away as soon as I started painting. Real stoked on him. Yeah. I remember actually how I got into mini painting. Growing up, I always loved gaming. I liked role-play games. I didn't get to play them in all the... We were in Boy Scouts and we'd play some role-playing games, but we never really played D&D. I had all the books. I bought the books with my allowance, but no one ever played with me. Real sad. But when I became an adult, I kind of had like these flashbacks of like, here's all the things I always wanted to do. I've got the money for it. Let's go for it. So I went in and I went to buy... I thought that, right? And I was on that idea for a while. And I was on set. I was working on a TV show called The Tick. No, I was on Sweetbitter. TV show on Stars called Sweetbitter. And my boss, who's this little nerdy guy, was getting made fun of by the rest of the camera department. Like, hey man, I bet you can paint miniatures. And I got on the walkie and I was like, yo, I want to paint miniatures. Steve, can you teach me? And he was always like that defensive person of like, oh no, I'm not nerdy, and I'm the opposite. I'm very much like, I am nerdy. Say something. Let's go. So we went out together and we started buying stuff together at the same time. and I went to my local game store in Connecticut, and the guys at the game store in Connecticut were like, you don't want to play Warhammer. Warhammer's done. It's dead. Learn War Machine. So I bought it. And I bought a whole Khador army, even though I hate the color red. And I painted them orange. Which is funny, because I then bought a Blood Angels army to follow it up, because I like the weird Italian imagery that they have. So I just keep buying red armies, even though I hate the color. There's no real orange armies in any of these games. If there's an orange army that I'm overlooking in War Machine, please let me know. There's not really one in Warhammer. Except for, I guess, orcs, maybe. Kozlov, yeah, I think that's his name. I don't have Santa Butcher. I in my rush to buy a bunch of butchers, I have Santa Butcher in my cart. Currently at a place where the film industry is dry, so I'm trying not to buy too much shit. So Santa Butcher's just sitting there. But I kind of want to do a quick video on that for the Christmas season. But he's such a sick model. Leagues of Votann kind of came out after I kind of slowed down on playing Warhammer. If I had the money to start a new Warhammer army, which I don't, or the insight, because I'm trying to go real heavy on War Machine. But if I had the money, I'd probably buy Leagues of Votann, mostly because I am 5'6", and I connect closely with them. But also the color orange. So like maybe they're my perfect army for Warhammer, but I'm not about to play them right now. Just because I can't afford it. I'm actually selling a bunch of like Death Guard that I've never painted. So I'm like, I'm not going to paint these guys. I have no interest in this game at the moment. I barely got into the last edition, and then I jumped back into War Machine and went full force into it. And now, because of all the videos I'm trying to make and all the battle reports we're going to make, I'm aggressively just like, nah. My problem is that I'm also like, very much, I keep looking at my iPad up here where the comments are. I'm very much a chip on my shoulder, underdog, 5'6" mentality. So when I got back into War Machine and all my friends were still playing Warhammer, and everyone like wants to talk Warhammer, it's like, man, I love the lore, but the game mechanics are not good. And War Machine's game mechanics are fun every time. So I get like, when I choose you as my team, I'm like, I'm on that side. I get defensive, and I get not aggressive, but when people are like, which one do you play? I'm like, what do you mean, which one do I play? Or like when people just want to talk about Warhammer, I'm like, man, there's a better way. There's better rules. Like, I'm not a Star Wars fan, but I loved Legion. I played Legion with Evan, and that game was top notch. I just like the idea of not having to do the traditional freaking shooting phase, moving phase, shooting phase, fighting phase. I want to do it in a better way. It's so boring. I hate solitaire games, and that game ends up feeling like solitaire. Which is kind of why I'm souring on Commander right now with Magic, because some people just freaking go off on Commander, and then like even in a 4-player game, it's like 20 minutes before it's my turn again, or I'm not paying attention to what you're doing because you're doing too much stuff. and I'm just bored and I just want to talk to people and have fun. If anyone following is in Brooklyn, we run Magic events every Sunday out of Lazy Sunday at a coffee shop. So if you're in the area, come down. You can beat me at Commander. Yo, Pedro. Pedro's in the chat. He's a Lazy Sunday guy. I think Evan's here too. Evan kind of just turns it on and says, great stuff. And that's our producer. He doesn't know he's our producer, but I keep calling our producer. Butcher 3. Is Butcher 3 Unleashed, or is Butcher 3... Butcher 1 is the Butcher of Cardov, right? That's just Butcher 1. And then there's this Butcher 2 Unleashed. And then Butcher 3 is Chained. I don't know, I got this guy. Let's see if it works on that camera. Right here. He's standing on like a whole pile of bodies. I think maybe he's Butcher 2 and Butcher 3 is the dogs, right? I don't know. They're, all the Butchers are dope. Butcher Unchained is like, alright. But the Orgoth Butcher is sick too. And I'm here for it. I'm waiting for the right opportunity to work up to him. I don't play Orgoth either, so it doesn't really affect me. It's like the heat from the light is just starting to actively dry my shit out as we go. So I'm going to keep thinning it down and glazing until it runs out. And we'll move on to the next color, which is going to be a beautiful 2 parts highlight, 1 part base coat. Base coat, it's really just a mid-tone. Like I said, I'm lazy on this one, where usually my base coat would be my shadow, but on this one it's my mid-tone. So how do you mean studio? Do you mean like studio paint job with like edge highlights and all that? Color schemes? How do you mean? Again, I'm looking at you here, but I keep looking at my iPad because that's where all the comments are. I gotta put them right next to each other so you guys can't tell the difference. There's always that one armor plate that comes out looking insanely good and better than anything else should, and then nothing else matches it. Okay, so it's color scheme. So it's funny because when I played Warhammer, I was so into the lore of Warhammer that I was very much could not paint my armies any other color than what they were, because I always treated it like a history book. It's like, nah, man, like this is how it happened. Just paint them this way. But I also painted them like heresy colors instead. So I guess it's not really studio. These guys with this box, with a starter box with Deuce that we're working on, I'm keeping studio for him. Keeping studio for all my Signar stuff. Not for any other reason than we're doing a battle report with this, and we're going all out on this battle report because it's kind of going to be our prototype battle report, and it's hard for me to pull in things that aren't part of the lore because I'm trying to use our channel to pull in new War Machine players. Sorry, big slip. Trying to pull in new War Machine players with our channel, so for me it's important to have the correct colors to start at least. My Chimera guys, which is my main army, are not studio color at all. I don't like their color for studio. They're blue and orange for the most part, which I like as a color scheme. I kind of like the Signar color scheme, even though I don't have a huge history of painting blue. But as an army, they're pretty cool. So yeah, for this challenge, and we're doing a challenge in which I paint half the box and mob hammer who's another YouTuber, paints half the box. And we're going to meet back and have a battle report, which we're hopefully shooting in like a week, if it works out. He's painted the Khador side. It's his first entry into War Machine. Obviously, his YouTube channel is called Mobhammer. So the whole point of the thing, the whole point of the channel, the whole point of the video, is to convince a Warhammer person to switch over and try our game, because I think it's a better game. And to get there, I'm trying to lure him out with painting minis. So we're starting with the painting minis and be like, oh, look how cool these minis are. Aren't they just as good as your Warhammer minis? Without all the skulls and the fucking guns. And then I'm gonna show him the game and be like, look man, you don't have to do your alternating, you don't have to do the way your system works, you can do it this way. Everything looks so good on these big shoulder pads. They got chalky as hell. It's driving me nuts. Yeah. Hold on. I am playing the dragons. When I got back into it, I was like, man, what am I gonna pick? I can't pick Khador because I know I hate red. Even though I like them, I need something new. And I found Chimera, and I was stoked. Let me pull out my Rashik, which I'm pretty proud of, and I'll show you in a second. Let me just finish these Slayers. Man, my shoulder pads are so chalky. I'm so mad about that. Everything else looks good. Fuck. I'm gonna hit it with like some glaze, heavy glaze later. It's gonna look okay. Thanks, bud. I'll send you pictures of Rashik later. Let me pull them out real quick. Don't go anywhere. Kind of feels like it's losing some contrast. There's my Rashik. He's on this cool custom base I made for him. He's got a custom sword. Orange, green, and blue. It's really like green and orange, but like it's really green and orange, and then the skin tones are like light pale blue. Just gonna put him over here. I'll be a little mascot person. I'm pretty proud of him. I like the way they play. I think I like Signar better though. I'm trying to decide if I want to switch. Thank you. Thank you. It is the 40k Chaos Terminator base. You killed it. I've had this one Terminator I'm really stoked to paint, and I've painted like 2/3 of him for the last 2 years, so he lost his base because I like Rashik better. He's my special boy. Yeah, I like it. I'm a big green, like orange and blue fan. Green and orange looks great. Okay, here we go. For those of you out there, because I know there's a little more experienced painters watching this, I appreciate your input. With your wet palette, I add water to my wet palette. Like I add the watering down waters, right? do you do that, or do you just do the technique where you push and let the water come up through the pallet? Because I've seen both. I can't really get the other one to work. I don't know if it's the paper I use, but it's the red grass paper, so it should be fine. We're up to 70, high score. Let's go. I'm gonna be very honest, my headphones just died. I can't hear the music, and it's going to bum me out. I'm also probably a disgusting person because I know I should be constantly rinsing my brushes, but I also know that I am consistently using my face as a rinse. I'm sure it's really bad for me. How's that protectorate model coming? Are you going studio with him too? Is he just white and those colors? Oh wait, you said already. Let me check the notes. Paint my desk in a Retribution color scheme during the weekend. I have a small 30 points paint next week. I mean, dusk is cool though. I mean, I never really gave them a lot of attention until Evan and a couple other guys in our group were running them. So I got to play against them, and I was like, man, this is just a cool concept as an army. And their models are cool. I'm absolutely intimidated, and I've said this before a couple times to different people, by their Warcaster. The one on the deer. I can't remember her name right now. It's got a cool name. But she's sick, and the Dusk army is dope. I think if I could get my wife into the game, it would be that army. Yeah, Pedro, no, Warhammer lore is great. It's the best part about the game. The models are great too. The game's not so great as a play system. But the lore also, to War Machine's detriment, is built off of, not to detriment, but like competition-wise, built off of like a writer's room of writers that literally come up here and I paint. That's not the thing. I gotta be here. They've got like a writer's room of writers as if they're like a TV show, and they decide what's gonna happen, and they talk it through, and then they assign these New York Times bestseller writers, which again, some of them are that because of their jobs as GW writers, but they just have a group of them being like, all right, cool, you do this book, you do this book, you do this book. They've got good writers doing it, and they've been doing that why the lore is so good with them is they've been doing that for the past like 30 years. So they just build and build and build. It's like if you had a TV show going for 30 years, you'd have so much lore built in and so much history and resets. And it's good. And the work is good. Some of it's a little janky. Some of it's a little plot armory, which I feel like War Machine lore doesn't have as much of, but maybe it does. They did just kill off a bunch of people, so maybe that's also incorrect. With this new edition, they killed a bunch of Warcasters and reset the timeline, but if you're not killing Warcasters, you're not playing War Machine, so. Again, these shoulder pads are just chalk city. I hope nobody ever notices this. I'm gonna wash those hard. Yeah, me too, Mark. Me too. I'll rehydrate the spongy thing as much as I need to, but I add to it because it's definitely not worth the absolute stress of doing it correctly. I don't know, you always get that kind of imposter syndrome where someone's going to tell you the right way to do things. And generally, people are pretty nice about it, you know. You're always waiting for the one person who's giving you the actually, it's supposed to be this way. And you're always kind of fearing those guys, which is harder to do in the YouTube generation because we have so many outlets to learn things from. But I've learned in the film industry, we were saying in camera, one of my bosses told me this, is that in camera department there's no wrong way to do something, there's only sins. There's no rules, only sins. I think it's the same thing for mini painting, where there's no right way to paint. There's only things you can do wrong. And once you find those limits, you kind of just find your own way. You know? If your paints aren't coming out too thick, I don't think you've got a problem with the way you've used your palette. Why do you keep doing that? It's wild the way their writer's room works at Warhammer, but honestly, War Machine's lore is pretty good too. I think the writers are, hopefully they're not watching, the writers are a little weak, and I'm like an absolute whore for prose, so if the writers are bad, it turns me off. But the Signar writers are pretty good. I think they kind of like assign writers to different factions. Makes me kind of want to try my own hand at it. I'm not a great writer though, so. I feel like that's got to be in their future though, for Steamforge with this game. Is finding like good writers for their stuff. Because like they're clearly working on Paint Machine, which is like their thing where they post on Instagram, like, come paint with us, Paint Machine, show us your paint jobs, which is like a big, I feel like the big thing with War Machine is not being approachable. It's a good game by good game players, but they also, you know, you get a little bit of that gatekeeping with War Machine, and it's hard because the content is good, but some of it's just not approachable. It's not the level of approachable. So the big thing, again, my point of this was, the big thing is it feels like Steamforge is taking steps towards like showing that our paint jobs are just as good as Warhammer paint jobs. And I think like another step that they should take, and we'll see what they do, is like showing that our lore is just as good as Warhammer lore and getting like good writers. Because clearly like the writers that I don't like, I think are newer writers and we're more of a privateer press hire than a Steamforge hire. And if they were smart, my thing would be to invest in the lore early and often so you can inspire people to play the game. Unless you're Magic, then do whatever you want and break hearts. I think the hardest part with layering for me, and this whole video has been me freaking layering, comes down to God, it's already doing it again. I have to do another. What should we call it? The hardest part of layering for me is when I'm not layering just one armor plate. Like I'm not in like competition mode, just layering one armor plate. Then I go through the entire mini and I kind of forget how much I'd layered before. And with layering, it's very important to kind of gradually step your way through. Slowly working your way up to brighter. And if you don't understand where you were before, you just kind of overwork what you've already worked. And that becomes problematic because you're not painting in highlights, you're just painting over your midtones. It's not an issue we have with lighting most of the time. Definitely an issue we have with painting. So you kind of got to know where you've been to know where you're going. But if I paint this entire model, I come back to where the highlights should be. I completely forget. It's easy on a Space Marine. On Space Marines, you just kind of circle shoulder pad most of the time. And you know how to make smaller circles. Or at least you should. The other cool thing, and it's been to my detriment to some extent, but I did base coat this in silver to start, and then I oil washed the silver, and because I oil washed the silver, it created a lot of depth in the shadows early. And so the cool thing about that is that even though I'm 100 layers in right now, 100 layers is a vast overstatement, but I'm a lot of layers in right now, I can still kind of see that shadow detail in the oil paints, which is absolutely cool. I think it's cool. You don't have to think it's cool, but I'm going to oil wash it again, but it's probably going to be more of a pin wash than anything. I don't like destroying all the work I did. I also keep forgetting to paint the back of the model, which is fine. I was looking at the back of the model. Down to 6. feel like at the end of this, no matter what I do, I'm gonna have to do like an edge highlight because it's armor plates. Get over myself a little bit. I also forgot to paint his head. I didn't put a highlight on his head. I keep missing like one plate. Mark, if you got any more painting questions, let me know. I'm here for you, but if I don't know it, I'll tell you. I keep missing some panels, but honestly, like, if I'm missing you, probably not somewhere obvious where you should be, and so if I miss you, probably means you're somewhere in the shadow, and you probably don't need highlights anyways, and I'm gonna live with that. I'm gonna live and die on that thinking. Really, as long as there's many as like tabletop ready, it doesn't really matter, but it matters to me. I'm a little too much of a freaking perfectionist for this stuff. But the plan for this, just to kind of give a talking point, I don't have a good brush brand for you, man. I wish I did. I go to Michael's and I buy what looks good to me. That's my maneuver. But yeah, so like a talking point that I was saying is that I'm going to probably do a small highlight on the metallics and work my way through that, crying the whole way. Then I'm going to oil wash. Hopefully if I get through this, I could do it tomorrow. Then I'm going to wipe away as much of the oil wash as I can. Hopefully not have to do any more highlighting after that. And then the important thing I'm going to try to do, which is going to be pretty sick, and I'm pretty excited for it, is if you look at these bits here, there's like ruins in here, and they're painted white. They've got white in them from my oil wash I did prior. And I'm going to spray those so they glow with the airbrush. And I'm going to try to do that also with these cool Tesla coils in the back. This should also be glowing. If I could pull that off, that'll be pretty exciting. And then after that, the last piece de resistance is going to be using small, like, it's not paper clips, it's like almost like soldering iron wire that I have. And I'm going to glue it on something like this. There'll be one there. There'll probably be one here coming to the claw. And then I think one hitting the base. I get a long one hitting the base. And I glow those white so it looks like lightning strikes coming off of it. Not a technique I've ever tried. Hopefully it comes out good. And then I'm going to speed paint the rest of this box in time for Monday, so that they don't all look bad. But this one's definitely going to be like a centerpiece, which is cool because having played this box prior to this battle report we're going to do, Deuce is a big part of the box itself, and it's going to be sick. Seeing him on the table portrayed the way he should be portrayed. Also, if you can hear that motorcycle outside, I do live in New York City. Sorry. Yeah, no, it's gonna look really cool. Again, it's gonna take me like 20 steps more. Hopefully it looks somewhat good. It comes out really good. I'm going to PAX Unplugged in Philadelphia with a bunch of the Lazy Sunday guys, and they have a painting challenge, like a painting competition. I was gonna enter Butcher 1. I don't know that I'm gonna get him done in time, mostly because I'm like painting for video, and it's so hard to do it at a good timely manner. So if that doesn't work out, I'm going to just enter Deuce. If he looks as good as I want him to look, maybe I'll introduce him. I'm also doing this small technique that I kind of do without thinking about it, called void brushing. I don't know if you've heard of that yet. It's one I kind of found after I was doing it and like heard it and was like, cool. There's like another name for it. It's like second brush, void brush, wet brush. Basically what I'll do is I'll lay down a layer. I'll kind of lay it where I want it to be, and then I will suck all of the paint off the brush and use the wet brush itself to kind of push around all the paint, so that it, instead of adding extra paint, it's just moving that paint wider, which is actually kind of thinning it out more. I mean, there's other ways of doing it, right? You can just straight up have a second brush on your hand that's wet. A lot of people do that. It's probably less gross. works to like eighth it out more than it needs to be. And B, just spread it around. Keep you from making too many streaks or fine edges. And it helps you smooth out those edges. Again, not a pro mini painter. I just played one on YouTube. There's just some super smooth panels that I'm 100% seeing streaks on, or like seeing like powdery elements from the paint. That's so frustrating for me. So everything else looks really good. I don't know if the camera can really pick up all the highlighting I'm doing, but hopefully you guys are watching along. It's like, wow, Corey's on like his 300th layer. It's really coming together for him. Wow, look at that guy go. He's an up and comer with upper measurement written all over him. I do think some of these streaky issues is just me doing too many layers over the same spots where I should be getting smaller. I'm not. Which is just making my paint become more and more opaque in those spots. Again, if you see me looking away, big cameras are big. I'm kind of playing to a little bit more now that the layers are starting to become more evident. Also, as I get higher in the highlights, I'm not really going to highlight as low anymore. Like I'm still doing speed panels, like this weird sonic feet. They're so big that they don't catch light, then there's something wrong. But I think after that, I'll probably stop highlighting the feet. I know I'm talking kind of quietly. Night's running a little late. different layer. A little brighter. No, I'll leave them up. I'll take down my sound. Lost 2 viewers. Alright, don't worry, I'm back. You guys can come back now. I am kind of actively trying to figure out. I have like 4 mics around my desk, and they're all attached to different cameras and such. So sorry that sound is a little quiet. It should be good now. So what I'm kind of doing now is that I water this paint down real far, so it's literally just water with a little bit of tint to it. Which is what it glazes, but it's super glazed. I'm trying to kind of iron out any of the lines I've created here. For some reason it's kind of coming out chalky and I don't love that. I think some of this is inherent with acrylic paint, but I don't love it. At the end of the day, I'm going to go back through this and do a, probably like a really thin glaze to try to meld the edges. We'll do that later. There's also going to be the washed up. The washed up kind of does the same thing. These shoulder pads are irredeemable. I can't fix them. I think anyone else probably wouldn't see how chalky that looks, but to me, it's looking super chalk. Super chalk. In case you're wondering at home, oh, there's 6 of us. Somebody came back because I came back. Right on. Fuck yeah. Let's go. That's my story. I'm sticking to it. Yes, I'm wearing a hat. Yes, it's nighttime. I'm inside. And yes, I am going bald. So that is why I'm wearing it. It's late. Let's get to the truth here. That's what we're all here. That's what Patriots are jumping. Want to see my bald spot. Lazy Sunday will Rogaine tomorrow. So again, we went to a higher tone, a brighter tone here. It's our, you can't really tell because everything dried out, so you can't really see how much brighter that is, but that's my highlight tone, pure and simple. Super washed out. So I need to make a point of now being sparing with this highlight. As it gets higher, I need to put it in less places, which is so hard for me to do. It's restraint. Also, it's kind of a weird highlight job if you look at it. If you're thinking that the way I'm painting, but again, I talked about this earlier. He's looking away from the light. So the light's coming straight down. He's looking down and away. So we're kind of, his body is so bulky that it's gonna block its own light. It's like when I'm lighting an interview and someone's forehead's in the way of the light, you're gonna keep the light out of the rest of your body, which could be cool if that works out. And the way I want to do the glow effect over here should create a shadow that the glow effect would pop out of. If I'm thinking through this in the lighting way, right? It's creating not just depth through shadows, but depth through different lighting values. Which, as a lighting guy, this is a big deal for me. People don't fully understand that all the time. You kind of get that knowledge from shooting black and white. Oh yeah? What does PRP stand for? And should I also do it? Is it expensive? We had you and Ice King in here. We had, man, I wonder what. I'm glad he missed this bit. But generally, so to go back to my lighting concepts, because I think Mini Painter makes me better at my ultimate job, which is cinematography. Ideally, a lot of depth is created through alternating shadows and bodies of light, not just light and shadow. A lot of people, and this drives me nuts, especially in like YouTube videos, will just light everything to exposure, and there's no peaks and valleys in their lighting. There's this like really famous cinematographer who shot like a bunch of like David Lynch stuff. I wish I could remember his name right now, but it's late and I've got a bunch of wine in me. But basically he pointed out that if he's going to make a shot dark, there needs to be some more light to draw the eye. And so if he does something really dark, he'll put like a light bulb in the corner. Like this light bulb here. No, it's to say. This light bulb here. Basically what that light bulb does is draws your eye through the darkness. So it's okay to go as dark as I want, as long as you have that spot in the darkness to light to. So if I want to make half the model dark, that's fine. We're going to lose some detail. As long as there's another light point to draw your eye. And that creates depth. Because there's different nodal points in the distance that you're looking along to. As long as you have a lighthouse in the distance, you have depth. That's kind of the idea. Low level laser. Is that also hair treatment? Question mark. For someone who doesn't know. I've always had a lot of hair. So I got old and I'm starting to, at 33 it's starting to leave me. I have a real hard time with it because I have awesome facial hair. This is my problem. Probably what I should just do competition minis. It's like, I could sit here and just layer all day. And this is what my problem was with when I started painting The Butcher. Is like, I painted him shadow to highlight. And then the highlight was just a little too bright. And too orangey for a red armor. So I layered it back down from highlight to shadow. And then back up again trying to just kind of bevel out that spot where the shadows meet. And so I'll go back and forth on that till it butters itself out. And it might never do that. But I could do that for days. And if I can convince you guys that I know what I'm talking about, then maybe competition painting is for me. So I can kind of show up here. See if you can see the highlights I've been putting in all night. Hopefully you can see that. I have a giant softbox above my desk, so you can kind of see it coming from here down. This one's a little chalky, but they're there. I'm constantly aware of like really good mini painters are always talking about like the biggest mistake of amateur painters comes down to biggest mistake of amateur painters really comes down to just not blocking in enough highlight, thinking that you've done it and having the highlights just be too muted. So for me, I'm absolutely constantly paranoid about whether or not I got that highlight level. Especially when you're playing on the tabletop. You want something to pop. You want to be able to, you're not looking at it like you're in a competition. You're looking at it to see if it catches your eye from afar. How long have we been streaming? Jeez, 2 hours. The problem is I could do this for another freaking 2 hours. See how many of you stick with me for a 4-hour stream. I might honestly need to do like a nice big whatchamacallit. I might need to glaze over the feet because they've gotten a little too bright for feet, but like I talked about, depth through tones of light, the feet, everything here is in shadow, kind of, because it's shadowed by the upper body, and the feet, they kind of pop because they're in a channel of light. So maybe I'll keep the nut right. Maybe it'll draw your eye down and across the mini. That would be pretty cool. The other half of film school, things that I like to talk about here, is learning how to just bullshit your way through things, pretending like that makes sense. I think maybe I'm doing too many layers here. There are parts of this model that look a little chalky and it's going to drive me insane. And I think maybe it just needs some shadow built back in. And I could do that later. And that's going to come also when I do my big oil wash. That's going to be a big step. But some of these are just butter soft lens, and it's pretty cool to see. Pretty excited about it. Pretty proud of myself. The greatest difficulty, honestly, with highlighting is just knowing where you've been and how to not just absolutely destroy your definition. I think maybe one more, and then I can move on to a brighter tone. You see, like what I'm doing with the. It's a terrible example because it's not very smooth, but it's a good example because you can kind of see my edges on this one, where I start with a big globe of light and I've slowly worked my way in.